In her immaculately organized office in a high-rise building in Chicago, Elizabeth Riley pushed aside her quarterly report and looked at a photograph in a simple silver frame. It showed her and Michael smiling on their 10th anniversary, just 6 months ago. What had changed since then? She couldn't say exactly, but her intuition insisted that something was wrong. "Mrs. Riley, your 2 o'clock meeting has been rescheduled for tomorrow." Her assistant's voice on the intercom brought her out of her reverie. "Thanks, Jen. In that case, I think I'll head home early." She had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Michael was due back from another business trip to River Haven, a small town 3 hours' drive from Chicago, where their niece Emily lived. Formally, these visits were related to his work at an insurance company, opening a new office, training staff. But the frequency of his trips, 3 in the last month, raised questions. The drive to their spacious townhouse in the prestigious Lincoln Park neighborhood took 40 minutes. After parking, Elizabeth noticed that Michael's car wasn't there yet. She took off her shoes in the hallway and mechanically checked the mail. Among the bills and advertising brochures was an envelope from the bank. Opening it, she frowned. A notification that $5,000 had been withdrawn from their joint account. The transaction had been made 4 days ago, on the day Michael left for River Haven. In the living room, she opened her laptop and logged into their joint bank account. Over the past 6 months, such cash withdrawals had become regular. $3,000 here, $4,500 there. Always round sums, always related to Michael's trips. The total amount exceeded $40,000. What was even stranger was that some of the money had been withdrawn in River Haven, even though Michael's company covered all his travel expenses. Elizabeth tried to find a logical explanation, but couldn't. River Haven was a town with a population of about 5,000. What could possibly cost that much money there? The insurance business almost never required cash payments of that amount. The sound of the front door opening interrupted her thoughts. She quickly closed her laptop. "Elizabeth, are you home?" Michael's voice sounded surprised. "In the living room," she replied, trying to make her voice sound normal. Michael entered, loosening his tie. At 42, he was still attractive. Tall, with dark hair streaked with gray, which only added to his charm. Charismatic and confident, he easily won people over. It was this trait that made him successful in the insurance business. "You're early. Did something happen?" He leaned down to kiss her on the cheek. He smelled not of his usual cologne, but of something floral and sweet. "My meeting was canceled. How was your trip?" Elizabeth watched his reaction closely. "Productive. The new agents are picking things up quickly, especially Jason. Remember I told you about him? He's going places." Michael spoke casually but avoided her gaze. In 15 years of marriage, Elizabeth had learned to recognize these subtle signals. "Did you see Emily?" she asked casually. There was a pause, slight but noticeable. "Yes, I stopped by for dinner. She says hi. She's studying for exams, buried in her books as usual." Emily was the daughter of Elizabeth's older sister, who had moved to Seattle with her husband a year ago, leaving their daughter to finish law school. Smart and ambitious, Emily had always been the favorite of the family. Elizabeth and Michael, who had no children of their own, often acted as parents to her, especially after her sister moved away. The evening passed with the usual conversation. Michael seemed relaxed, telling funny stories about his colleagues, but something about his behavior troubled Elizabeth. Minor inconsistencies, avoidance of certain topics, excessive detail about insignificant moments, signs that the truth was being replaced by a carefully crafted version. That night, lying next to her sleeping husband, Elizabeth made a decision. She was a business consultant specializing in identifying corporate violations. The same analytical thinking and attention to detail could be applied to her personal situation. If Michael was hiding something, she would find out. A week later, the perfect opportunity presented itself. Michael announced another trip to River Haven. "I'll have to stay over the weekend. There are some problems with the paperwork, and I need to double-check everything myself." "Maybe I'll go with you," Elizabeth suggested. "I haven't seen Emily in a while." His response was immediate. "No need. I'll be busy with paperwork. You'll be bored. Besides, Emily has exams. She's not seeing anyone right now." After he left on Friday morning, Elizabeth took the day off and followed him in her car, keeping a safe distance. Instead of heading to his company's office in downtown Riverhaven, Michael drove through the city and stopped at a small but well-kept house on the outskirts. It wasn't the student campus where Emily lived, but a secluded spot overlooking a lake. Elizabeth parked 2 blocks away and, putting on sunglasses and a hat, approached close enough to see the house without being noticed. Half an hour later, a taxi pulled up and Emily got out. A slender girl with her hair pulled back in a casual bun, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. She looked around, then quickly headed for the house. Michael opened the door before she knocked, and Elizabeth saw them embrace, not like uncle and niece, but like lovers who hadn't seen each other in a long time. Something broke inside her, but the professional part of her mind noted that her suspicions had been confirmed and that she now needed additional evidence. At the hotel where she had checked in under her maiden name, Elizabeth methodically went over the facts. Michael's behavior, the money, the house he had never mentioned, and now this meeting with Emily, clearly not the first. The next day, she followed them to a local restaurant, where she was able to take several photos on her phone. Michael was holding Emily's hand, they were exchanging intimate glances, and once she saw him kiss her on the lips. Then the couple returned to the same house and stayed there until evening. That evening, sitting in her room, Elizabeth gathered information about the mysterious house. Through an online property record service, she found out that the house had been purchased 6 months ago in the name of Michael Riley. The purchase coincided with the start of large cash withdrawals. Now everything was falling into place. On Sunday evening, she returned to Chicago before Michael and waited for him, looking through their family photos. There was Emily, too. Her high school graduation, Christmas holidays, a summer vacation at the lake 3 years ago. In the last photo, the 3 of them were smiling, standing on the pier. Michael was hugging them both, his wife and niece. When had everything changed? How had she not noticed? When the key turned in the lock, Elizabeth put the album away. She wasn't ready for a confrontation yet. She needed more information, a better understanding of the situation. For now, she would observe, gather evidence, and plan her next steps. "Hi, honey," she smiled as Michael entered the living room. "How was your weekend?" The wait-and-see tactic proved to be the right one. For 2 weeks after her secret visit to Riverhaven, Elizabeth closely monitored Michael's actions, documenting every oddity, every inconsistency. She had installed a hidden application on his computer that recorded his keystrokes, an ethical compromise in her mind, given the circumstances. In their spacious kitchen, Elizabeth was brewing coffee when her phone rang. "Hello, Sarah," she answered her sister, trying to sound normal. "Liz, how are you? How's Michael? How's our favorite city? I miss you all," Sarah said as usual, quickly and emotionally. "Everything's fine," Elizabeth lied. "Michael's busy, working a lot. How's Seattle? How's James?" "James is on a business trip. I'm calling to find out about Emily. She hasn't answered for 2 weeks. I understand she has exams, but she could at least send a message." Elizabeth clenched the phone. Maybe she really is busy studying. I haven't seen her in a long time. "You always defend her," Sarah laughed. "By the way, Michael is there often for work, right? Does he see her?" Pause. "He stops by sometimes," Elizabeth said cautiously. "I have to go, Sarah. I'll call you later." Hanging up, she looked at her computer screen. The spyware program had returned its first results. An email address she didn't recognize, registered to Michael, with a year's worth of correspondence. Elizabeth copied the data and began to read. The messages became increasingly intimate, starting last summer. "Can't wait to see you again. I miss you every minute. Imagine if we could be together forever." Photos that should never exist between an uncle and his niece. Plans, promises, talk of a future together. The most recent letters mentioned financial difficulties. Emily wrote about her growing student loans and the risk of losing her place at law school. Michael promised to help. "I'll find a way. We'll get through this together." Then Elizabeth found something that made her heart sink. If only E knew about the investments. We could use some of the money. She wouldn't even notice. E was her Elizabeth. They were discussing her money. Elizabeth had always controlled the family finances, but 3 years ago, when her workload became unbearable, she let Michael take over some of the investment accounts. investments that were supposed to be their future, their financial safety net. With trembling hands, she logged into the investment portfolio management system, and she saw 3 accounts were completely closed, 2 had been significantly reduced. The total amount of missing funds was almost $180,000. "Oh my God," she whispered, covering her mouth with her hand. Michael wasn't just cheating on her with their niece. He had been systematically stealing from his wife. The next day, Elizabeth took a day off work, citing family circumstances, and headed back to Riverhaven. This time, her target was Emily herself. The local college campus looked typical: old brick buildings, lawns dotted with groups of students, an atmosphere of youth and possibility. Elizabeth easily found the law school and the class schedule. She had to wait 2 hours. Finally, Emily came out of the building with a few students, laughing at someone's joke. She looked carefree, no hint of financial problems or emotional stress from a secret relationship. The sun reflected off her light hair, giving it a golden hue, so similar to Elizabeth's own hair when she was younger. Waiting for Emily to say goodbye to her friends, Elizabeth walked over to her. "Hello, Emily." The girl started, almost dropping her books. "Aunt Liz, what are you—" "I didn't know you were coming." "Apparently not. We need to talk. Alone." They settled into a cafe outside the campus, a secluded spot where no one would overhear their conversation. Emily looked tense, constantly fiddling with the bracelet on her wrist, an expensive diamond bracelet that a typical student definitely couldn't afford. "How are your studies?" Elizabeth began, studying her niece's reaction. "Fine. It's not easy, but I'm managing," Emily said, avoiding her eyes. "Mom's worried. She says you're not answering your calls. I'm busy. Exams, part-time job, you know how it is." "Part-time job? At what house?" "Tom's, the one on the lake." The color drained from Emily's face. She froze, then slowly raised her eyes. "You know?" "Yes, I know, and I want to hear your side of the story before I jump to conclusions." Silence. Then, "We love each other." Those words, spoken with unwavering conviction, hit Elizabeth harder than she had expected. "He's your uncle, Emily, your father's brother." "Not my biological uncle," the girl quickly objected. "Technically, he's not related to me by blood. He's my husband, and he's 18 years older than you. Age is just a number, and marriages break up. You and Michael lived as neighbors for years, not as husband and wife. He said so himself." Elizabeth felt anger rising inside her. "And when did this start? When did you decide you had a right to my husband?" "Last summer, after my birthday. We didn't plan it, it just happened. At first it was just talking. He was the only one who really understood me, my ambitions. Then the feelings grew stronger." "Feelings?" Elizabeth leaned forward. "What about the money, Emily? His gifts, paying for your education? The money you stole from my accounts?" Emily straightened up, a cold gleam appearing in her eyes. "I didn't ask him for any of that. He offered to help, and it's temporary. When I finish my studies and start practicing, I'll pay it all back." "Do you really believe that? What will happen when the money runs out, when the novelty of the relationship wears off?" "We love each other," Emily repeated, "and we have a plan. Michael is going to leave you. We'll be together officially." Elizabeth laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. "Does he say that to all his mistresses, or are you special?" Emily's cheeks flushed. "You don't understand. We have a special connection. Michael says he's never felt this way before. He's just waiting for the right moment." "Right moment for what? To take even more of my money? Do you even realize what you're getting yourself into? This isn't a romantic story, Emily. It's a scam. It might even be a criminal offense." The girl's expression changed. Fear showed through her mask of confidence. "What do you mean?" "I mean that Michael used a forged power of attorney to access some of my accounts. I found the documents. This is financial fraud, Emily. And if you knew about it, you're an accomplice." Emily paled. I didn't know. He said you discussed everything, that the money was his bonus from work. Did you really believe that? Or did you just not ask questions while you were getting expensive gifts and your tuition paid for?" The silence spoke louder than any answer. "Here's what I propose," Elizabeth continued. "You tell me everything you know about Michael's financial dealings, and I won't press charges against you. Your career as a lawyer will remain intact." "Are you blackmailing me?" I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing, while there's still time to fix things, while no one but the three of us knows." Emily lowered her eyes, then nodded slowly. "All right, what do you want to know?" For the next hour, Emily recounted the development of her relationship with Michael. She told her how he had become a regular presence in her life, first as a caring uncle, then as a friend and mentor, and eventually as something more. She told her how he had said he had never truly loved Elizabeth, and that their marriage had been a mistake. Emily knew less about the money than Elizabeth had hoped. Yes, Michael bought her gifts, paid for her education, and rented a house. But she wasn't involved in his financial dealings. He said that after he divorced you, you would divide the property and he would get his share, that we would start a new life. "Didn't you ever think he might do to you what he did to me?" Elizabeth asked. Uncertainty flashed across Emily's face. "It will be different with me. He loves me." "He only loves himself, Emily. I'm sorry you can't see that." When they parted, Emily seemed lost and uncertain. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I haven't decided yet, but when I do, you'll know." Back at the hotel, Elizabeth methodically wrote down everything she had learned. The picture was becoming clear. Michael wasn't just cheating on her with their niece. He was deliberately deceiving both women, manipulating their feelings and finances. That night, lying awake, Elizabeth thought about her next steps. A direct confrontation with Michael now seemed inevitable. But before that, she needed to find out a few things. Who else knew about this relationship? Was this Michael's first affair, or just the latest of many? By morning, she had a plan. In a small town like Riverhaven, secrets don't stay secret for long. Someone must have noticed the strange couple and wondered about them. Elizabeth needed a local source of information, someone who knew the town and its residents. Looking through old family photos, she remembered Daniel Green, the owner of a hardware store in downtown Riverhaven. An old family friend, he had known them for years. If anyone could tell her the truth about Michael's life in this town, it was him. With renewed determination, Elizabeth closed her laptop. While Michael thought she was in Chicago, busy with work, she had time to find out the whole truth. And when she returned home, nothing would ever be the same again. Green's hardware store had been on Riverhaven's main street for over 30 years. The creaky wooden sign and the window display of seasonal items gave the impression that time had stood still here. Elizabeth took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The bell jingled, announcing her arrival. Behind the counter stood Daniel Green, a stocky man in a flannel shirt with a neatly trimmed gray beard. His face lit up when he recognized his visitor. "Elizabeth Riley, what a surprise! I haven't seen you in 100 years, he said, stepping out from behind the counter to hug her. "What brings you to our neck of the woods? Is Michael with you?" "Hello, Daniel." "No, I'm alone," she smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "I thought I'd take a break from the hustle and bustle of the city." Daniel looked at her closely. Over the years of working in a small town, he had learned to read people. "Coffee? I have a small break room in the back of the store. No one will disturb us there." Elizabeth nodded, understanding the implication. "I'd love to." In the cramped room with a worn sofa and a small table, Daniel poured coffee into mugs. "So what's really going on, Elizabeth? You look troubled." She took a sip, thinking about where to start. "Daniel, when was the last time you saw Michael?" Let me think. The day before yesterday, I think. He came by to pick up some tools. He was fixing something at his lake house." "His house," Elizabeth repeated. "You know about that house." Daniel frowned. "Of course. He bought it last summer. It's a nice place, though it needed some work." Pause. "I thought you knew." "No. Until recently, I didn't know about the house or—" She trailed off. Daniel sighed heavily. "About the girl, Emily, right? Your niece." Elizabeth tensed. "So you know, and for how long?" "It's a small town, Elizabeth. People notice. When a middle-aged man and a young woman are regularly seen together, rumors start, especially if they don't go out of their way to hide." "And no one thought to tell me?" Daniel looked into his mug. "I tried to hint to Michael that it wasn't right. He assured me that you were separating, that everything had been agreed upon. He wanted to sort things out with the girl first, then announce the divorce. Hell, he even asked me for advice on choosing an engagement ring. Elizabeth felt the blood drain from her face. An engagement ring? He was going to propose to her? He bought the ring at Peterson's jewelry store a month ago, platinum with a sapphire and diamonds. It was very expensive. Wonderful, Elizabeth said bitterly. What else do you know about their relationship? Daniel hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. Look, I don't want to hurt you. It can't get any worse, believe me. I need the truth, Daniel, the whole truth. He nodded. At first, it seemed innocent. Michael said he was helping his niece with her studies, helping her adjust after her parents moved. Then the rumors started. They were seen in restaurants, at the lake, holding hands. Emily was wearing expensive clothes that a student couldn't afford. When did it start? It's hard to say. The first rumors started about a year ago, but they started appearing openly last summer after he bought the house. Were there other women before Emily? Daniel looked away, and that gesture told Elizabeth everything she wanted to know. Who? She asked quietly. A couple of years ago, there was a waitress from the Blue Cup. It lasted a few months, then she left. Before that, there was a woman from the bank where he opened a branch. But those were just flings. With Emily, it's different. He's really into her. Elizabeth clenched her mug so tightly that her fingers turned white. In love. Or obsessed. Lately, I'm not so sure. They fight a lot. People heard them in the restaurant a couple of weeks ago, something about money, some kind of problem. Michael looked tense, not like himself. In what way? Jittery, irritable. He's always been a calm guy, good with people. Now he seems on edge all the time. And there's something else. Daniel hesitated. What? Some strange guys have been around, not locals. They came by asking about Michael. One of them was particularly insistent, tall, wearing an expensive suit. He said Michael owed him money. Elizabeth felt a chill run down her spine. How much? He didn't say. But judging by his appearance and tone, it was a lot. When was that? The day before yesterday. The same day Michael came by to pick up his tools. The new information was forming an alarming picture. It wasn't just affairs on the side, or stealing the family savings. Michael seemed to be embroiled in more serious problems. Daniel, I need a favor. Elizabeth took a business card out of her purse. If these people show up again, or if you notice anything unusual about Michael or Emily, call me, anytime. Daniel nodded. Of course, and Elizabeth, I'm sorry I didn't tell you earlier. I just didn't want to get involved. I understand. Thank you for your honesty. Back at the hotel, Elizabeth feverishly analyzed the information she had received. The story turned out to be deeper and more complicated than she had imagined. Michael wasn't just cheating on her. He had created a whole parallel life. And judging by all appearances, that life was now falling apart at the seams. She called a colleague in finance whom she trusted. Without going into the details of her personal situation, she described the scheme for withdrawing funds from investment accounts. If the money was withdrawn using a forged power of attorney, that's a serious crime, her colleague confirmed. You should consult a lawyer, and possibly the police. After the call, Elizabeth sat motionless, staring out the window at the quiet streets of Riverhaven. During her years of marriage to Michael, she had become accustomed to solving problems logically and finding rational solutions. But now her emotions threatened to overwhelm her. The ringing of the phone snapped her out of her reverie. Daniel. Elizabeth, that man is here again. He's looking for Michael. He looks angry. Where exactly? He just left my shop. He's heading toward the house on the lake. I'm on my way. It was an impulsive decision, but Elizabeth couldn't pass up the chance to find out more. Who was this man? What was his connection to Michael? Perhaps the answers to these questions would shed light on the whole situation. As she approached the lake house, she noticed an expensive black car with tinted windows parked nearby. Michael wasn't supposed to be in Riverhaven today. He thought Elizabeth was in Chicago and wouldn't risk coming here. She parked off to the side and cautiously approached the house. The lights were on inside. Voices could be heard coming from the half-open window, a man's, low and threatening, and a woman's, frightened. Emily. Do you realize what he's done? Where's the money, Emily? I don't know, I swear. He never told me about such amounts. I don't believe you. You've been together for a year. You know everything about his business. No, we didn't discuss such things. There was a loud bang on the table. Time is running out. Either Michael returns the money or he's in trouble, and so are you. Please, I can try to contact him, convince him to talk to you. He's had enough time. 2 days, Emily. You both have 2 days. Elizabeth stepped back into the shadows as the front door opened, and a tall man in a dark suit emerged from the house. Even from a distance, he looked tense and dangerous. He got into a black car and drove away. Elizabeth waited a few minutes, gathering her courage, then approached the door and knocked. Emily didn't open it right away. Her eyes were red from crying, and a bruise was forming on her cheek. When she saw Elizabeth, she froze. "Can I come in?" Elizabeth asked quietly. Emily stepped back silently, letting her inside. The house was tastefully decorated, clearly the work of a designer. There were photos of Michael and Emily on the mantelpiece, fresh flowers in vases, the perfect love nest. "Who was that?" Elizabeth asked, pointing in the direction the car had driven off. Emily sank onto the sofa, wrapping her arms around herself. "His name is Victor. He's Michael's creditor." "Creditor? You mean a loan shark?" Emily nodded. "Michael borrowed money from him, a lot of money, and he couldn't pay him back on time." "How much?" $250,000. Elizabeth felt the room spin before her eyes. "What? Why did he need that much money?" "Investments. Some startup that promised huge profits. Michael was sure he could not only pay back the debt, but also earn enough to..." She fell silent. "So we could what, Emily?" "So we could start a new life. He said that with the money we could move away, maybe even abroad, start with a clean slate." "And you believed him?" Emily looked away. "I wanted to believe him. He was so convincing. And now? Now I don't know what to think. He hasn't answered his phone in 2 days, and Victor is getting more and more insistent." She touched the bruise on her cheek. Today he crossed the line. Elizabeth moved closer, examining her niece's face closely. "You need to see a doctor. It's just a bruise." "Emily, this man is dangerous. If Michael really owes him that much money and isn't paying him back, the consequences could be serious. For both of you." Emily covered her face with her hands. "I don't know what to do. Everything is out of control. Tell me everything, from the beginning." And Emily told her. About how she fell in love with Michael, how he promised her the future she dreamed of. About how she gradually noticed inconsistencies in his stories, financial difficulties that he hid behind expensive gifts and grandiose plans. Over the last few months, he's been different, nervous, sometimes aggressive. He said I wasn't grateful enough, that I didn't understand what he was risking for us. A week ago, we had a big fight. I found messages from another woman on his phone. What kind of woman? Someone from his past. Laura. They were discussing a meeting, some plans they had together. When I asked him about it, he got angry and said I was asking too much, that he was doing everything he could. Another piece of the puzzle. Michael didn't seem to be leading just one double life. He had several. "Emily, you need to get out of here. Right now. This man, Victor, will come back, and next time, he might not stop at a bruise." "But where will I go? I can't go back to the dorm. He knows where to find me." Elizabeth thought for a moment. Despite everything that had happened, Emily was still her niece, and now she was in danger. "Pack your things. We're going to Chicago." "Chicago? To your house?" Emily looked stunned. "My house," Elizabeth corrected her. "Michael won't show up there, trust me. And it's the last place anyone will look for you." "But why are you helping me? After everything I've done?" Elizabeth looked at her for a long time. "Because you're also a victim of Michael, just like me. And because you're family no matter what happens." The drive to Chicago was tense and silent. Emily, emotionally and physically exhausted, dozed off in the passenger seat. Elizabeth glanced at her from time to time. Young, beautiful, with a potentially bright future. How easily it could all be destroyed by one wrong choice. They arrived in Chicago late in the evening. The house greeted them with silence and emptiness. Michael hadn't been back for several days, judging by the untouched mail and wilted flowers in the vase. "Make yourself comfortable in the guest bedroom," Elizabeth said, showing Emily to the room. "We'll decide what to do tomorrow. When Emily left, Elizabeth returned to the living room and poured herself a glass of wine. The situation was becoming increasingly complicated and dangerous. Michael wasn't just a con artist and a liar. He had gotten himself into debt with people who didn't forgive non-payment. And now he had disappeared, leaving chaos behind him. Elizabeth took out her phone and dialed Michael's number. Voicemail. "Michael, it's me. We need to talk. Right away. It's serious. Call me." Then she called her lawyer and briefly outlined the situation, without going into details about Victor and the threats. "Come to the office tomorrow," the lawyer said. "We'll start the process of freezing his accounts and preparing for a divorce. If the evidence of financial fraud is confirmed, we can file a criminal complaint." Hanging up, Elizabeth walked over to the window. Chicago sparkled with lights at night, living its usual life. Her life, on the other hand, had suddenly turned into a tangled web of lies, betrayal, and danger. Her phone vibrated, a message from Michael. "I'm sorry, it's complicated. Let's meet at home tomorrow at 8 p.m. I'll explain everything. I love you." Elizabeth smiled grimly. Even now, he was still lying. "I love you." A phrase that had become meaningless over the years of marriage, now seemed especially false. But the meeting was necessary. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., she would finally hear the truth from the man she had once trusted more than anyone else in the world. And perhaps it would be their last conversation. Elizabeth spent the day of the meeting making meticulous preparations. In the morning, she took Emily to the doctor to document the bruise and get a medical report. Then they visited a lawyer, where Emily gave a written statement about her relationship with Michael and the threats from Victor. "Can this be used in court?" Elizabeth asked the lawyer when Emily left the office. "Absolutely. Relationships with minors. She's 24. Elizabeth corrected him. "Even so, there are ethical aspects to family relationships. But the main thing is financial fraud and forgery of a power of attorney. These are serious charges that could lead to criminal prosecution. And the threats from this Victor are a separate issue. You should both go to the police." "After I talk to Michael," Elizabeth said firmly. "First, I want to hear his side of the story." When she returned home, she found Emily in the living room looking at family photo albums. "You looked happy," Emily said quietly, pointing to a photo from 10 years ago of Elizabeth and Michael at a picnic by the lake. "We were happy," Elizabeth said, sitting down next to her. "At least, I thought we were." "When did everything change?" Elizabeth thought for a moment. "I'm not sure there was a specific moment. We gradually grew apart. Work, ambitions, different goals. At some point I realized we were living like neighbors, not like a married couple." "He said the same thing," Emily admitted. "That you'd become strangers, that you cared more about your career than him." "Maybe there's some truth in that," Elizabeth said, closing the album. "But that doesn't excuse the lies and betrayal." "I know," Emily said, lowering her eyes. "I'm to blame too. I should have realized it was wrong." "You're young, Emily. Michael is a master manipulator. He made you believe in a fairy tale." "A fairy tale that turned into a nightmare." Emily touched the bruise, now more visible against her pale skin. "What are you going to say to him today?" "The truth, that I know everything, and that he'll have to answer for his actions." As 8 o'clock approached, the tension in the house grew. Elizabeth insisted that Emily stay in the guest bedroom with the door locked. "I want to talk to him alone. If you need my help, I'll call you." At 7:55, Elizabeth sat down in the living room, placing a folder of documents in front of her. Bank statements, copies of the forged power of attorney, photos of Michael and Emily in Riverhaven, the lawyer's testimony, evidence of a double life. At exactly 8 o'clock, the sound of a key in the lock rang out. Michael entered, looking exhausted. His designer suit was wrinkled. He had 3 days' stubble and dark circles under his eyes. He stopped in the doorway when he saw Elizabeth. "Hi," he said hoarsely. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." "I had no choice given the circumstances," she said, pointing to the chair opposite him. "Sit down. We need to talk." Michael sat down, rubbing his hands nervously. "Liz, I know you're probably angry." "Angry?" She raised an eyebrow. "That's too mild a word, Michael. I'm devastated, betrayed, robbed." He flinched. "You know. I know everything." Elizabeth opened the folder and laid the documents on the table. About your affair with Emily, about the house on the lake, about the money you stole from our accounts, about Victor and his $250,000. Michael turned pale. How did you find out about Victor? He paid Emily a visit. He left her a souvenir. Elizabeth showed him a photo of a bruise on Emily's face. He threatened her, Michael. Your game has jeopardized not only our future, but her safety. Michael covered his face with his hands. God, I didn't know. I didn't think he would go that far. Obviously, you didn't think about a lot of things. Now I need answers. The whole truth, Michael. No excuses. He nodded slowly, straightened up, and looked her in the eyes. Where should I start? With Emily. When and how did this start? Michael took a deep breath. Last summer, on her birthday. You couldn't come because of an important meeting, remember? I was the only family member there. We sat there talking about her future, her dreams. She was so enthusiastic, so alive. Something clicked between us. And you decided to seduce our niece? It was mutual, Liz. She was a young girl, dazzled by the attention of an older man. And you were her uncle, someone she trusted. Don't try to shift the blame. Michael lowered his eyes. You're right. It's my fault. I should have stopped. But you didn't. No. It developed gradually. Phone calls, messages, then secret meetings. I bought a house so we could see each other without prying eyes. With our money. I was going to pay it all back, he said, raising his head. I had a plan. The startup you invested Victor's money in? How did that work out for you? Michael smiled bitterly. Terribly. The company went bankrupt a month after I invested. I lost everything. My money and Victor's money. And my money, Elizabeth reminded him. Almost $200,000 from our accounts. I was desperate, Liz. Victor was threatening me. I couldn't borrow that kind of money officially. The banks would have checked my credit history and seen my other debts. What other debts? Michael hesitated. I've been having financial difficulties for the last couple of years. A few bad investments, credit cards, online casinos. Casinos? Elizabeth couldn't believe her ears. You're a gambler, not a professional. Just sometimes when things were going badly, I tried to win it back. It turned into a vicious circle. Elizabeth shook her head. Who are you, Michael? I thought I'd known you for 15 years, but now I realize I don't know you at all. He reached across the table, but she pulled away. Liz, I'm still the same person. I'm just confused. What about Emily? Was that real love or just a way to escape your problems? Michael thought for a moment, and something that looked like sincerity flashed in his eyes. At first, I really thought I loved her. She was like a breath of fresh air, but then he trailed off. Then what? It all got too complicated. Her expectations, my problems. She wanted a normal relationship, was planning for the future, talking about children, and I was just trying to survive, to solve my debt problems. And that's why you turned to Laura? Michael flinched. You know about Laura? Emily found your correspondence. Who is she, Michael? Another mistress? An ex, he admitted. From college. We ran into each other a few months ago. She's rich, recently divorced. I thought maybe she could help me out financially. Elizabeth laughed, a bitter, disappointed laugh. Amazing. You weren't just cheating on me. You were looking for ways to use all the women around you. I was desperately trying to find a way out, Liz. Victor isn't someone you mess with. He's involved with dangerous people. What do you mean? He works for a Russian gang that launders money through shady investments. He launders money from drugs and weapons. I found out too late. Elizabeth suddenly felt cold. You got involved with the mafia? I didn't know. Michael looked genuinely frightened. He seemed like a normal private investor, tough but legitimate. It was only when I couldn't pay him back that I realized who I was dealing with. And that's why you disappeared for a few days? I was hiding, changing hotels, trying to scrape together enough money to delay the payments. Where's Emily? Michael asked suddenly, looking around. She's in danger. If Victor found her once, he'll find her again. She's here. She's safe. Unlike you, I don't abandon my family in times of need. She's here? Michael looked shocked, but he stopped when he saw the look on Elizabeth's face. Yes, Michael. Your wife and your mistress are under the same roof. The irony of fate. Liz, please. You don't understand how serious this is. Victor is giving me one last chance to get the money back by tomorrow, midnight. Or what? Or someone will get hurt, he said quietly. He didn't just threaten me. He mentioned you and Emily. Elizabeth looked closely at her husband. There was real fear in his eyes. You're asking me to pay your debts? After everything you've done? I know I have no right to ask, but it's a matter of safety. Then I'll leave. Forever. You'll get a divorce on any terms. I'll sign anything you want. What about the engagement ring? The one you bought for Emily? Michael looked embarrassed. You know about that too. Daniel Green turned out to be a more honest friend than you are a husband. It was a mistake. I thought a new relationship would solve all our problems. It was stupid, I know. A heavy silence hung in the room. Finally, Elizabeth spoke. I'm not going to pay Victor back. Liz, please, think about... I'm not finished, she raised her hand. I'm not going to pay, but I have another plan. She took another document out of the folder, a printout of an email. This is from my colleague at the FBI. He's interested in information about Victor and his connections. It turns out they've been watching this group for a long time. Michael stared at the paper. You contacted the FBI? This afternoon, we have two options. Either you come with me to their office right now and tell them everything you know in exchange for witness protection. For yourself, for me, for Emily. Or I call the police and report financial fraud, document forgery, and everything else. You wouldn't do that. You? Try me. Elizabeth held the phone. After everything you've done, I have no reason to protect you. Michael closed his eyes, thinking about the situation. And if I go to the FBI, what then? Witness protection. That means new names, new places, disappearing. For you, yes. For Emily and me, maybe temporarily. But it's better than waiting for Victor to come after his money. You've thought this through, he said, his voice tinged with admiration. Unlike you, Elizabeth said, standing up. Decide now, Michael. The FBI or the police? He stood up too. The FBI. I'll tell them everything I know. Good. Gather your things. You have 10 minutes. When Michael left the room, Elizabeth took a deep breath. The plan was risky, but it was the only option in this situation. She went to the guest bedroom and knocked softly. Emily, please open the door. The door opened. Emily stood there, pale but determined. I heard your conversation. The walls are thin. So you know what we have to do. Yes, I'm ready. Emily glanced toward the stairs where Michael appeared with a small bag. Are we all going? Yes. I've already contacted Agent Sorensen. He's waiting for us. Michael froze when he saw Emily. Something flashed in his eyes. Shame, regret, remnants of feelings. Emily, No, she shook her head. Just don't. At that moment, Elizabeth realized that it was over for Emily. Whatever illusions she had harbored about Michael and their relationship had been shattered by the light of the whole truth. Let's go, Elizabeth said, picking up her bag. The sooner we get this over with, the sooner we can start our new lives. Separately, she added, looking at Michael. They were walking down the stairs when they heard the sound of breaking glass. A black shadow darted across the living room. Victor, tall, in a dark suit, with a gun in his hand. No one is going anywhere, he said with a slight accent. Especially you, Michael. Victor, Michael raised his hands. I was just gathering the money. Time's up, he replied coldly. The boss has lost his patience. Elizabeth instinctively pulled Emily behind her. There's no money in this house, but we can work something out. Victor shifted his gaze to her. You must be his wife. I've heard about you. A smart businesswoman. Maybe you can offer something worthwhile. The FBI, Elizabeth said. We're going to them. Michael is willing to testify against your organization in exchange for protection. Victor laughed. Interesting move, but I can't let that happen. It's already been done, Elizabeth said firmly. I sent all the information to Agent Sorensen an hour ago. If we're not at the office in 30 minutes, they'll start looking. And they'll come here first. Victor frowned, then took a step forward, pointing his gun at Michael. Then we don't have much time. Michael, you're coming with me. Now. No, Michael replied unexpectedly, stepping forward and shielding Elizabeth and Emily. I'm not going anywhere. It's over, Victor. I'll tell the FBI everything. Names, dates, transactions, every detail. You wouldn't dare. Victor raised his gun higher. I will. I've made a lot of mistakes, but this is my chance to do something right. At least once. What happened next took only a few seconds. Victor jerked, clearly about to shoot. Michael lunged forward. A shot rang out. Michael fell. Emily screamed. Acting on pure instinct, Elizabeth grabbed a heavy table lamp and struck Victor hard on the head. He staggered and dropped the gun. A second blow sent him into unconsciousness. Michael! Elizabeth fell to her knees next to her husband. A dark stain spread across his shirt. She pressed her hands against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Emily, call 911, quick! Emily dialed the number with trembling hands. Michael, hold on. Help is on the way. Elizabeth stared into his eyes, which were growing increasingly cloudy. Liz. His voice was barely audible. I'm sorry. For everything. Shh. Save your strength. No, I have to tell you. I ruined everything. Our life. Your trust. That doesn't matter now. It does. He struggled to raise his hand and touched her face. I loved you. Truly. I just forgot that at some point. Elizabeth felt tears running down her cheeks. I know. I loved you too. Take care of Emily. She's a good girl. She's just confused. Like me. I will. But you'll be there too. Just don't close your eyes. You hear me, Michael? But his eyes were already closed. His breathing became labored. Sirens wailed in the distance. Emily knelt down beside him and took his hand. They're almost here. Hold on, please. At that moment, Elizabeth realized that regardless of whether Michael survived or not, nothing would ever be the same again. All the secrets had been revealed, all the cards were on the table, and a strange feeling of relief mingled with grief and fear for his life. Her last thought before the paramedics burst into the house was how quickly life could change, how fragile everything we take for granted is, and how dearly we sometimes have to pay for the truth. 6 months later, Elizabeth stood at the window of her new home in Portland, watching the rain. The move was part of her agreement with the Witness Protection Program. A new city, a new job, a new last name. Her phone vibrated. A message from Emily. I'll be home for dinner at 7. Don't forget Alex. Alex Sorensen was the FBI agent who had handled their case and was now a frequent guest at their house. Over the past few months, he had become more than just a protector. He was a friend, a support, and for Elizabeth, perhaps something more. Michael spent 3 weeks in the hospital after the operation. The bullet had grazed his lung, but the doctors were able to save him. He was now serving a 5-year sentence under a plea bargain, much less than he could have gotten, thanks to his cooperation with the feds. His testimony had helped dismantle an entire money laundering ring and led to the arrest of the group's leaders. Victor received 15 years without parole. The doorbell interrupted Elizabeth's thoughts. Alex was standing at the door, tall, wearing a waterproof jacket and carrying a bottle of wine. I decided to come early to help with dinner. He smiled. In the kitchen, cutting vegetables, Elizabeth thought about the strange twists of fate, about how something good can come out of personal tragedy. Have you visited him? Alex asked cautiously. Last month. He's come to terms with it. He says he deserved his punishment. And Emily? She's not ready to see him. Maybe she never will be. Elizabeth remembered her last serious conversation with Emily, a month after the incident. I thought I loved him, Emily had said then. But it was just an illusion. He only showed me what I wanted to see. We all see what we want to see, Elizabeth replied. In him, in others, in ourselves. Emily was now finishing law school at a local university. She lived alone but spent weekends with Elizabeth. Emily's parents knew part of the truth, enough to understand the need for change, but not enough to compound their pain. They're here, Alex nodded toward the approaching car. Emily and her new friend, a graduate student in psychology, got out of the car. A normal, healthy relationship with someone her own age. Over dinner, they talked about everything except the past. About plans, about the future, about hopes. They laughed. Sometimes Elizabeth caught Alex's attentive gaze and smiled back. Slowly, day by day, life was returning to normal. Before leaving, Emily lingered in the hallway. He writes to me from prison, she said unexpectedly. He asks for forgiveness. He says he's in therapy, working on himself. Elizabeth tensed. And how do you feel? Nothing. Emily shook her head. Empty. Like it was a dream I finally woke up from. I can forgive him. For myself, not for him. But seeing him, that's different. You don't have to. Never. I know, but thank you for saying that. Emily hugged her. And thank you for not turning away from me back then. I couldn't have done it without you. After they left, Elizabeth and Alex sat on the porch listening to the rain. Do you think she'll ever fully recover? He asked. Recover, yes. Forget, no. An experience like that changes you forever, but not necessarily for the worse. What about you? Have you recovered? Elizabeth thought for a moment. I've learned to live with it, to accept what happened as part of my history, but not as something that defines me. Alex took her hand. You're an incredible woman, Elizabeth. New name, remember? I'm Catherine now. To me, you'll always be Elizabeth, the woman who didn't break when her world fell apart, who protected not only herself, but others as well. They sat in silence, holding hands. Uncertainty lay ahead, but it no longer frightened them. There were scars, but they were healing. There was pain from the past, but there was also hope for the future. Sometimes, to find the light, you have to go through the darkest night.